Hello, everyone. Hi, I'm Kathy DeBross, VP of Marketing Engagement for ArtsWave, the region's engine for the arts. And welcome to 2022, your creative best self. This is the last of our monthly Arts for Wellness series, that series that has hopefully helped us to be hopeful and healthy throughout all of 2022. We have done a lot through the arts over the last year. Let's see, we've done mindfulness and jazz at Findlay Market, and we've learned about stress behind the film and so forth. So it's fitting that we wrap up this series looking ahead, looking at what we want to do in 2022, and how do we use creativity and inspiration as a big part of that. So big thanks to a lot of the people here, especially the people, you might not see them here, but our friends at Game Day Communications. We could not have done this series without them. They've been fabulous partners, so creative, but also just really hardworking and rolling up their sleeves. So thank you to everyone there. A thank you to our moderator and our presenter, Valerie Jacobs. Oh my goodness, she has done so much. We were just talking before this, and it just sort of blows your mind how many parts of the art she has touched. And I think she's going to help us to really figure out what it is we want to accomplish next year. Or so that's what I'm hoping, because I'm going to be taking notes throughout. Kim Popa and Amy Tuttle from Pounce, so creative, doing so many things, and they're going to get us into the movement for the upcoming year. And of course, we all need that. Montez Sorrell, the Pounce coach, and he's so entrepreneurial. He's got a whole fashion line. We're going to learn more about that. And then our friends at Palooza Noir, Raven Fulton. Palooza Noir is doing so much. And Raven is going to kind of enlighten us into some of the plans, as well as African American arts. What can we plan for in the upcoming year? And then last, but hardly least, you all that are at home or wherever you might be, are donors. It would be an understatement to say that the pandemic has hurt the arts. It has been really, really challenging. But donors, Cincinnatians, our entire region, has helped our arts keep alive and thriving. We've learned so much, we've innovated, we've held on, we've done all those things, and we've done it because of you. So a big, big thank you. And now let me introduce our host. Valerie Jacobs of LPK is a partner of ArtsWave, longtime supporter, and actually was a key person to why we became ArtsWave and the way we look as a brand. Valerie is the Chief Growth Officer. She's a world-renowned authority on forecasting, sociocultural trends, and she's presented at leading design conferences on future thinking. She works on intuition and quick wit. She weaves research and analysis and trend data, and she gets you to be thinking about things strategically and yet creatively. So who could be a better presenter for tonight if we're trying to add this all together? So I'm going to turn it over to Valerie. Welcome.
Well, thank you so much, Kathy. And I too have really, really enjoyed our time together preparing for this, and having the opportunity to be here, because I truly believe that ArtsWave is the engine for our arts in Cincinnati. And it is so cool to see ArtsWave offering a program like Arts for Wellness. And it's really exciting that live and in-person arts are back, even though we're virtual tonight. And like you said, we're going to take a look ahead into 2022 this evening and discover how and where we find inspiration, how creativity can help us make the most of our lives in the year that's ahead. Before we do that, though, I don't want everyone to feel like we're just going to be talking, just me talking here the whole time. I want to go ahead and introduce our panelists, because I know I'm super excited to hear from them. And we'll be able to hear from them throughout the evening, you know, a little bit during the introductions, and then we're going to interview each one. And then also, if you have any questions for anyone, please put them in the chat throughout the evening, and we'll be able to come back and see what people have to say. So I'm going to jump right in, and I'm going to introduce you first to Kim Popa. She is the co-founder and executive director of Pounce. She has studied dance for over 35 years and teaches extensively at places like the Carnegie, the Springer School Center, the SCPA, and does multiple dance workshops around the tri-state region. Kim has worked internationally at the Sri Lankan Institute for Buddhist Studies, the Crisis Art Festival in Italy, the Sibiu International Theater Festival in Romania, and she's performed in multiple main stage productions and modern dance concerts. She serves as a big for Big Brothers, Big Sisters, and has a passion for art and all things volunteerism in many, many forms. Tonight, she's joined by one of her partners in her dance company, Amy Tuttle, who is an MA in Arts and Transformation from Eastern University, which she earned in 2013. And she has served communities around the globe as a facilitator, a trainer, and a community-based artist for 15 years. Her experience ranges from guiding public art installations, developing and guiding arts-based first response for disaster relief scenarios, and training practitioners around the world. She serves as the chief director of programming for another totally cool arts organization in Cincinnati called Wordplay Cincy, an arts-based organization where stories write the future. Tuttle is also a movement facilitator with Pounce, a member of NOAA, the National Organization of Arts and Health, a faculty for the Global Arts and Medicine Institute, and a practitioner with the Cincinnati Arts Association's Arts and Healing Program. Tuttle loves guiding experiences for individuals and groups with a range of things like clarifying your purpose, healing from challenging experiences, and working with life's transitions. She considers her practice a simple yet deep process, also bringing in storytelling to help transfer meaning, build bridges of communication to engage across differences, and explore building the world together. She believes that the arts can support individuals and communities in personal growth, community building, and cultural transformation. So I'm going to ask this amazing duo to tell us all, what was your inspiration when you developed Pounce, Wordplay, and just generally for the community-based work that you guys do?
Yeah, thank you for such a good question, Valerie. We were discussing it before we logged on here, and I think we found some common denominators for both of us, whether it's through wordplay, through writing, through movement. And I think that art is so powerful for the pair of us because it can be a tool to really build empathy. It can be a way that people can more viscerally experience maybe some challenging material and understand, and that can be material that the outside world is giving them or that challenging material that's coming up for them personally. And it's a way to help us to just build understanding of others and ourselves.
Yeah, I was thinking a lot about the work that you guys do. And I feel like, especially over the past 2 years, I have been in my head constantly, not in my body. And so I am really looking forward to talking to you guys more about the importance of not just being up here all the time and getting in the body to do exactly what you said, like to process, to deal with things more viscerally, and to like be able to just like freely let it go. So I'm really excited because if just not maybe a spoiler alert, Kim and Amy are going to do a little movement for us later in the program. So okay, let's talk to Montez. He is known as the Pounce coach, and he is a dynamic orator and has over 13 years of experience in youth advocacy, youth pastoring, mentorship, education, and community engagement expertise. As the founder of Pounce Lifestyle, LLC, his goal is to empower and inspire individuals to pursue purpose and their dreams from an aggressive and passionate approach. Montez was recently named Startup Cincy's Side Hustler of the Year by the Cincinnati Young Black Professionals Organization to highlight an outstanding individual who embodies the hustle mentality day in and day out while inspiring others to do so as well. He hosts the Pounce Talk podcast and is the founder of the Pounce line of apparel that offers inviting yet exclusive clothing with a premium aesthetic that ignites passion and ambition. So, okay, Montez, you're even more than a triple threat here. You're like a quintuple threat with all these things. Where does the inspiration come for doing all this work in the community?
Well, I appreciate that introduction. I feel very special. Thank you for that. But to answer your question, I think honestly, it's just my life's mission. Ever since I was a little boy, even growing into adolescence and coming into adulthood, my life's mission is to impact. I always tell people often all the time, I may not change the world, but I guarantee you that I will influence the mind that does. And so I'm excited about the life's work that I get to do and to partake in really igniting passion and purpose in people and getting them to really embrace their capacity by any means necessary. No one is minuscule in the eyes of anyone that walks this world. Everyone has a contribution, and I'm just here to get you excited about it and to accomplish it as best as you can.
Yeah, and I love that you have just so many places where you can intersect people, whether it's through their expression with their clothes, or if they want to learn through listening, or if they want your direct mentorship and coaching. You have really found a multifaceted and dynamic way of meeting people where they are in order to do the work that you feel like you were put on this planet to do. That's really just amazing.
Thank you.
All right, let's introduce Raven. Raven Fulton of Palooza Noir is a multifaceted creative who has 6 years of experience in the entertainment and arts industry. Raven currently serves as one of the co-chairs for Palooza Noir's Black and Brown Faces 2022 exhibition at the Cincinnati Art Museum. She founded Raven Navarre Media in 2017 with the idea that everything has a story. Let me help tell it. She offers freelance services as a content creator, creative director, videographer, photographer, and project manager. So she's like Montez, like a quintuple threat. And before her role with Palooza Noir, Raven was at Radio 1, where she had some major accomplishments. She produced and hosted the first annual 101.1 The Wiz 30 Under 30 and managed the Lincolnware, and created an original IGTV series, Trop House Uncut, with radio personality Tropicana. So Raven, with all these things that you know how to do, what inspires you to bring this to the people?
I really think it's just creating spaces and opportunities for people who look like me within the creative arts industry. I think I've always had a connection with arts. I grew up as a theater kid. And even when I went to school for journalism, I made sure that I was going to do the arts and entertainment beats. You were not going to tell me otherwise. I was very adamant about that. And I think just having that connection, I've just always wanted to create spaces for others, especially being younger. I never really saw people who looked like me in the industry up close and personal. It was always big Hollywood, but locally, I never really saw me. So I just want to create those spaces for people who are coming behind me, people who are in front of me, and people who are with me.
Well, I can already tell that you are a great inspiration to people just by doing the thing you said, by showing up, being yourself, and kind of iconically helping to show that representation is out there and it can happen, and that you can not only just be it yourself, but impact others, just like Montez and the other ladies we've got here. So I really sort of don't even want to do my presentation because I'm so excited to hear from everybody else. But I did sign up to offer about 10 or 15 minutes of thoughts to the group today. And I'm excited to hear more from them, but I'm going to share with everyone a presentation that I created many years ago about my own journey towards finding out how I personally could stay inspired. And I hope that what this does is give some food for thought to others on how they can become inspired, understand what their inspiration equation is, and to live an inspired life, not only in 2022 and the year ahead, but moving forward, how can you make new practices, disciplines, self-care? And we'll talk with each panelist after that about similar ideas about how they stay focused and inspired in their own work and what insight they have with us, because everybody's inspiration equation is different. And so it'll be great to hear more from each other to hear how that kind of plays out in their lives. Okay, so next reminder, please post questions in the chat. We'll get to them at the end. And I just want to start out by saying how excited I am to be here this evening, especially with this audience of people who are so deeply caring about the arts, creativity, and also about how these things can coalesce to enhance our health and well-being. This is really progressive as an idea. We were talking earlier that not only have I been a supporter of ArtsWave since the minute I moved to Cincinnati, before I got here, I had an 8-year career in arts marketing and public relations. And so I am like the biggest fan of the mission of ArtsWave because I've been knee deep in it for almost all of my career. And the other thing that's so cool about this program is that it's part of evolving and expanding the reach and audiences beyond like typical arts engagements. And I don't know, I just think that that's really progressive and cool. So Kathy already introduced me. You know, my name is Valerie Jacobs, and I like to think of myself as a futurist. First and foremost, but I serve in a role as the Chief Growth Officer at LPK, and that's a brand and innovation consultancy focused here in Cincinnati, and it's purpose-built to deliver the now, near, and next for businesses. Essentially, what I do with my team is track emerging trends and global shifts in order to ensure that our clients' ideas and innovations are relevant both where and when they launch. So to kick us off, I'm going to start with a story. And like a lot of stories, this one's going to start with a flashback. The year was 2011. So this is 10 years ago. And it was the self-evaluation season at LPK where I work. And I've worked there long enough to have worked there over a decade. And we take this very seriously at LPK. Because we're a very growth-oriented company, and it's not just about the business growth, but about your personal growth. And that starts by having sort of the personal development plan at the beginning of the year, what we want to accomplish. And here's what was on my development plan when I wrote it at the beginning of 2011. My main goal that year was to be inspiring and inspired. And this was in order to fuel my ability to find big ideas and emerging trends. And I mean, those of you out there who know what SMART goals are, know that this isn't a very, quote, smart goal because it's not measurable. But that wasn't actually the biggest problem I had with this being a goal I put in, because this was kind of like a do my job type of statement. But that kind of wasn't the problem. The problem was that I got to the end of 2011 and I was grading myself on the year, and I realized I did not feel like I accomplished anything great in 2011. And I especially did not feel like I had been inspired or inspiring. And I gave myself an F, which is maybe not what you want to turn in to your boss when you're like getting ready to see if you can get promoted or whatever. But I'm a reflective person anyway, but I knew I had a problem when I gave myself the F. And I mean, my colleagues are actually really nice. And they were like, well, you were inspiring. And I was like, okay, so I'll take that part off. And I said, but I knew inside myself that I would never feel like I was inspiring to others unless I felt inspired myself and I didn't. And maybe you're feeling that way now too, because I think we're all really tired. We're experiencing some burnout. So kind of this was a nut I had to crack. How do I figure out what inspires me? And so I'm proposing some things for you to help figure out what inspires you. So the first thing I did was I wrote down how I thought inspiration operated, like what was the formula. And I realized that I thought that what would happen is that I would feel inspired first, that I would be in this amazing state of mind and like this hallowed space. And then I would, from that feeling of inspiration, it would cause me to have creative ideas and actions. And that would result in me having, ideas. And I was like, okay, this is great. I just have to figure out how to get in that feeling space of inspiration. And I was like, if I can unlock this, I know this will make me happier, healthier, more fulfilled. But I didn't know exactly how to get going. So I was like, well, I'm going to run an experiment. And I kind of started with a hypothesis. And I made myself, I am a dork, I will tell you. I made a list of the things, and I'm not lying, I made a list of people I thought were inspiring that I thought I should talk to. I made a list of activities. I promised myself that I would do this list for an entire year, keep notes on it, journal on it. And I was like, I'm going to read books. I'm going to go to cultural events. I'm going to do things out of my comfort zone. I'm going to double my number of collaborators. I'm going to interview disruptors. I'm going to conduct experiments inside my work. And I did this. I worked really hard. This is an actual page out of my notebook where I kept a journal of every single thing I did and kept results. And lucky for me, you can see here that by June and July, I actually had cracked it and I'd figured out some things. So I'm going to tell you guys what I learned. So first of all, I learned that you have to create the right conditions. This means that you have to create space for yourself. So you have to have the right context. Then you need to make sure you have enough input. You can't just expect to create things without filling the well. But remember, this is like garbage in, garbage out. So your inputs need to be high quality, well curated. And that means unless you are a TV writer, binge watching Netflix does not count. So, and then while you're doing this, you're gonna have ideas and they will start flowing. I really believe in the power of writing all of them down. I even believe in what I call externalizing my brain. I will fill a room with Post-its on every wall. And this is called displayed thinking, but it helps me really literally know what's on my mind. And then you can behold your work. And then you have all this output and you realize oh my gosh, I'm actually creative. And then I realized, wait, I'm inspired. So this was I'm not lying. This is a huge aha for me at the time. And it turns out that there's actually science behind this. And one of the examples is something called the facial feedback hypothesis. And it's the idea that our facial movements actually impact our feelings. In other words, if we smile even when we don't feel like it, eventually we start to feel happier. So this led to me understanding that although people think emotion drives behavior, it's actually the opposite. Emotions don't drive behavior. Behavior drives emotion. This was a major breakthrough because the process that I thought was true was opposite of what I initially thought. Ultimately, the feeling of being inspired is what happens after you create ideas. It is not a state that you need to be in the first place. So gone are your excuses. You do not wait for that feeling. You take action and you just do it. But like every good equation, there are corollaries, things that naturally flow from the equation. And my three are being bad, being boring, and being a faker. So first, let's talk about being bad. So I loved that when I started putting this presentation together, I found that all of these other people that I really admired as creatives had some of the same thoughts that I did, like Twyla Tharp, who's an amazing choreographer. And she said that some of her favorite dancers were the ones who fell the most because she realized that they were human. They might be superhumans, but ultimately they were, fallible. And it was from this that I first developed my corollary. You need to be good at being bad. And you have to have a constant flow of ideas. You have to keep showing up on the page. And honestly, you just need to focus on getting your ideas out and not judging them. Because honestly, in the beginning of any creative process, you actually will not know the difference between something that is terrible and something that's brilliant, which led me to create a little side project with my girlfriend, Kim, called Coffee and Kiki. So in the summer of 2015, my girlfriend moved back to Cincinnati and she was waiting for her apartment to be ready. So that gave us a couple of weeks to have her be my guest in my guest room. And every morning, Kim and I would get up and have coffee together. And I would try in vain to pour latte art. And it turned out looking like this, which is so bad. Then it would look like this, like a baby dinosaur. I don't know. And every day, by the way, I'm trying to make a heart, which this cannot be further from this. And some days I might sort of get close, but every now and again, I would have a stroke of luck and I would get an actual heart. And so this was fun and amusing to me. And I really appreciated even my own discipline to show up and keep trying, even though I was really bad. I am not getting hired to be a barista anywhere. But the more important part of this was it led to Kim and I starting a separate Instagram feed that we dedicated to this. It didn't last that long. And you'll see here that with 15 followers, it's not like I'm an influencer. But nevertheless, it was an amazing experiment because being bad on purpose and doing it every day, I realized that I could keep my creativity light, fun, and amusing, at least to me and Kim and our 15 followers. And that just made me realize that you have to create, put it out there, and love yourself anyway. The next corollary to my equation is that to stay inspired, you have to kind of be boring. And I love that another author, Austin Kleon, who wrote a great book, Steal Like an Artist, believes this too. He's the only way to get creative work done is to be boring. And I love that the name of his book is Steal Like an Artist because I realized I sort of stole the idea from him about being boring. So I thought that was a really fun little ironic twist. And then one of the things that I'll tell you guys that makes me super boring is I must have sleep. Sleep is one of the most important parts of my creative regimen. If I am tired, I cannot think, I can't function, and I'm not a great creative. And thankfully, there are others who share my point of view, like my dog here, Remy, but also Greg McCowan, who wrote the book Essentialism, who says one of the most common ways people, especially ambitious, successful people, damage themselves is through their lack of sleep. The first suggestion in Gretchen Rubin's book, The Happiness Project, is to go to bed earlier. This is actually a form of self-care that, at least for me, is necessary for staying inspired. The third corollary really has to do with the idea of imitation, being a faker. And not only is imitation the sincerest form of flattery, it's the path to figuring out who you really are and ultimately developing your own style and aesthetic. So I'm not sure how many people attending the program tonight have either been to design school or had a friend who went to design school. But when I was learning to draw, when I was in school at the University of Cincinnati in DAP, they give you an assignment that asks you to imitate a master. So basically you take a very famous drawing and you have to draw it as well. This turned out to be the best drawing I did that whole year, and probably the best drawing I've ever done in my career. I am not a good drawer, but I did make an A on this drawing, and I'm pretty sure it was the only one I ever made. And I would beg my instructors when I was in design school to do demonstrations, whether it was sewing or drawing or pattern making. I needed those demonstrations because I could imitate the physicality of the gestures they made. For me, seeing the sweep of their hand or the arc of their wrist when they were drawing, those things gave me clues how to make, and it was all part of the imitation. And I'm not suggesting that you outright represent something as your own that you did not do. But as Elizabeth Gilbert says, I'm reminding you that everybody imitates before they can innovate. And ideas are like that too. We often repeat and imitate ideas without even realizing it. You know, I already mentioned this, but I read books all the time, and I love bringing quotes in. I love paraphrasing people. And I think that those ideas get planted in our heads like the inputs that I was talking about earlier, and they serve as great fodder that will bubble back up when you're doing your work later. And all of this helped me kind of find a new take on the idea of a very famous truism, which is fake it till you make it. I used to actually think that this was about like fronting and having the confidence until you actually had the experience to back it up and to become the expert you want to be. But both Elizabeth Gilbert and Austin Kleon have another interpretation that really resonated with me, which is that you actually have to fake it, imitate, until you actually make it, like make something of your own. And so while there may not really be any original ideas out there, they become unique when they are done by you and through you. So in the end, here's the summation of what I've learned and practiced ever since. Being inspired is the feeling you have after you take action. And when I'm bad, I end up growing. When I'm boring, I end up prolific. And when I'm a faker, I ultimately become authentic. And that is a great place to be. And when I apply my inspiration equation and the corollaries, being inspired isn't something that is elusive or hard to capture. I find it's something that I can always conjure as long as I'm willing to do the math. Thank you. So I hope if you guys have any questions for me or about inspiration equation, again, put them in the chat. And I'm gonna kind of go to Kim and Amy first. And as we stated in the introductions, much of their work is focused on movement and the body, as well as how that relates to community building. So Kim, you mentioned that you have found that movement can both inspire and sustain you as an artist and a person. How did you kind of come to those conclusions?
Yeah, so I think this question kind of confused me, or not confused me, but stumped me a bit at first, because I was saying to Amy, you know, I can't remember when I wasn't moving. Like that was part of my life experience. And so I don't think it's until when I became an instructor and I started to see the impact that movement had on other people, that I actually understood what I had kind of instinctively, accidentally, luckily been doing for myself by like really moving some emotions through my body, tapping in. You know, I think when we think of movement being inspiration, we can be reminded of the intuitive power of our bodies. We kind of have all the wisdom we need right here in this body. But the hardest part is what you alluded to, Valerie, at the top, of turning this off for a second and really dropping in and trusting those gut instincts that our body already knows. When we do that, it can really create some powerful transformation, but sometimes some scary transformation too. So I think often our mind is something that we switch up to because things start getting a little complicated everywhere else in our bodies. So we're ready to get distracted again and not really sit with some really, what can be really difficult emotions, but can also be ultimately really healing things that we move through our body. And I think I loved what you said about inspiration. And we do a lot of heavy borrowing of ideas is what I like to frame it as, because it's not, no idea is really new, but you're kind of borrowing it for a minute, shifting it up to make it your own. And that's where the interplay of community partners and our dancers really come into our work. We're taking inspiration all the time through various social justice organizations that we work with, or our collective of 50 dancers. So there's lots of inspiration coming in at all times, so that it doesn't feel ever like it has to be all on one person's shoulders.
Yeah, I could also see, I'm even just thinking about myself whenever I engage in something that gets me moving. It can be pretty self-conscious at the beginning, but you just have to keep moving. And at the end, you feel great.
That's so true.
Right?
And people often, I get this all the time. I don't know if you get this too, Amy, but I'll say that I'm a dancer and people are like, oh, no, I can't dance. And I think there's an intimidation factor of dance. So often we'll frame it as movement, because I think that begins to broaden that spectrum.
Yeah.
And also what you said too about to sustain something, there also has to be some levity to it, right? It doesn't have to all be deep, serious yoga practice. I love yoga, but there's a lot of different other ways that we can move our bodies, and levity and simplicity, I think, are often overlooked.
Yeah. Now, do you think that those sound like the classic parts? Are there any trends in movement that we should look forward to in 2022 and beyond?
So one thing that we've experienced really as a result of the pandemic is this ease of access to global connection. And for us as dancers, as movers, as folks who are innovators and connectors, ultimately collaborative artists, the opportunity to foster collaboration around the globe has become more and more inspiring to us. So as an organization and also as individuals, we've started to get more involved in what's happening at a broader scale, like what's happening around the world. And some things that we're finding are that there is a really awesome opportunity to introduce more research to the work that we're doing. So not only are we doing movement, we are actually creating some trends in the work that we do. And we're finding some impact in ways that is really quite inspiring and consistent. And so we're looking forward to exploring that more amongst some other things. Like Kim has a really, really awesome project going on, movement with aging populations.
Yeah. Say, you know what? I was going to ask you a little bit more about that, that potential aspect of how does it help with your health? So something like aging or mental or emotional or physical health. Like you have so much deep expertise in connecting those two things. Maybe you can talk about that for a minute.
Absolutely. Yeah. So there's a lot of research. The connection between movement and physical health, mental health, emotional health is a long and well-researched field. So there's a lot of best practices that we benefit from and we can contribute to as well. Some things that we know for sure, because we experience them ourselves and we see them all the time, are that movement helps us to digest our experiences. So like what's happening internally, what's happening around me externally, what are some of the things that are impacting my community, the globe, and how can I digest that experience. Also, like what happens in our body impacts other areas of our existence. So if we can stay, for example, flexible, if I can maintain a sense of flexibility in my body, maybe I can also keep a flexible mentality about my life. And then there's all sorts of really, really cool stuff like neuroplasticity and like just where neuroscience meets movement, meets the field of psychology and all sorts of healing that we get to play with on a pretty regular basis. And then I also just want to say that one of the most simple, deep, potent things that we get to experience as movement artists on a regular basis is connection building. And so during this time where we've experienced so much isolation, deep isolation, even as things are going back to being in person, connection through storytelling and through, Valerie, what you said, like maybe at first it's awkward or uncomfortable, or you might even feel like foolish, right? Dancing, moving, stretching together, telling your story. But once you get used to it, you start to really sense the connective tissue that exists between people. And it's our job to strengthen that.
Well, great. So since we're going to try to encourage people in this, how about you two show a couple of simple movement exercises that maybe we can start and incorporate into 2022 or to like help de-stress during a hectic time as we close out the year?
Beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, we're gonna stand up. So everyone, if you're able, go ahead and take a stance. But if you're in your chair, that's fine too. This can work both ways. We'll kind of adjust ourselves a bit too. I'm much shorter than Amy. So actually what I wanted to do to offer, and then Amy's going to help us kind of drop in, but I'm going to offer really quickly something to wake up our bodies because we're on Zoom, we've been sitting. So this is just something very simple, very easy that we can do to wake up our bodies. It's something you can do if you're feeling anxious. It kind of shakes up the system. And there's actually some really amazing things in like Reiki energy work. They sometimes call it dry bathing, but we're gonna kind of just get our energy going. So take your hands and we're gonna just do some light tapping. So go ahead and hold out one arm, doesn't matter which one. And we're gonna tap up the top of our arm and down the inside. And we're just gonna do that with a pretty gentle touch, not too hard, but just kind of waking up that arm energy about 5 times. And then we're gonna do the same thing on our other arm, going up and down. And it's your preference how much pressure you wanna use, but just really getting that blood flowing. And now taking that to the chest. You can make a noise if you want, that feels kind of good. Just be like, And then dropping that down to the stomach, around to the back. This one's really hard. If you have a friend, you can help them. Hitting the shoulders, and then down to the hips. Hips are really good. Hippos kind of harder because our hips are, there's a lot going on in there. We hold on to a lot of stuff. And then we're gonna go down our legs, same as the hand. So down the leg and up the inside, down and up, down and up. Good, and again, you can be doing this in a chair. I just preferred to stand up. And then we're gonna go to the other leg, down and up, waking it up. And then tops of our feet. And then top of your head, get your hair kind of messy. And tapping on those cheekies. Great. And then calmly, slowly kind of just hang out in your chair or standing. And if it's available to you and it feels comfortable, go ahead and just close your eyes for a second and feel how your body maybe feels a little bit differently than it did before we started that. Maybe your breath is a little faster. Maybe you feel a little tingly. but really feeling that energy and that life source that we have, that we just woke up. And then taking one more deep breath in through your nose, letting it out with a little sigh. And Amy's going to take over on us, dropping down a little bit.
Okay, so another thing that we love to do with our bodies is just storytelling and using basic shapes, gestures, poses to share how we're feeling and what we're experiencing. So Valerie, I loved how you shared bad, boring, faker and the connection between those, and almost the opposite. This is something we do in movement all the time, is we use movement to get from one state to another. And so take a moment and just imagine, what do you think is a challenge that might arise in 2022? You can just really imagine that challenge and then see if there is a shape, a gesture, a pose that tells that story, that matches it. And our challenge to you is, at home, the comfort of your home, make that shape. So I'm going to play with a shape. And now we're going to practice the work of our behavior, or what we do with our bodies, creating the opposite of our experience, changing our mood. So really stick with that challenge for a second, lean into it, and then let yourself feel, what is the opposite? How could I move my body to make the opposite shape? And then try just going back and forth a couple of times from the challenge into the opposite. And one more time, the challenge. So we're embodying the opposite of our challenge, and we might even be able to name it. There's this way of, perhaps it becomes the choreography of openness, or the choreography of creativity, the choreography of confidence. So last but not least, let's all, on our own, create a pose, a gesture, a movement, something small that represents your best self in 2020. All right, so take a moment and just imagine in to the story of my best self 2022. Maybe there's a word or a phrase, and certainly there's a shape. Just go ahead and give it a shape. Give it a pose. And then Kim and I are lucky we can see each other's poses. You know, if we're doing this with friends or family, we can use it to connect and storytell. Like, I hope 2020 is wholehearted.
And this is ease for me. Nice and easy.
Oh, I love it. You guys are amazing. I mean, even just after the little tapping exercise, I just felt alert, like connected, even like in the environment, you know, like feeling the air, even circulating. That was just like a cool little wake up call. I love that. Thank you. Thank you guys so much for all that insight and telling us your stories. And if anybody has any questions for Kim and Amy, put them in the chat and we'll circle back to those. So, okay, we're going to talk to Montez next. And, you know, in his speaking engagements and on his podcast, Montez talks a lot about staying focused and determined. And that focus has led him to create a fashion line as well as to do motivational coaching. So Montez, tell us a little bit about how you're able to funnel all your creativity, you know, into a can-do attitude. You know, I feel like when you're in the creative process, I always feel like I have a dark night of the soul. Like I'm questioning myself. And, you know, it is not easy to keep that positive attitude. So how do you do it?
Excellent question. I appreciate you again for allowing me to be here this evening. I think to answer that question, I think the first thing that I had to realize is I needed to make a commitment to creativity. I needed to make sure that I made an intentional, vow, so to speak.
Yes.
Allowing myself and giving myself permission to explore creativity and to explore discovery. And a lot of times, like you just spoke to, Valerie, you know, it can be a scary place or a dark place when you are entering the realms of creativity. But I like to tell people often that that's a part of that process, and to encourage individuals to continue on that process or that journey and see what's on the other side of that dark place. And so when you think about attitude is a settled way of thinking. And so I believe that if you're going to move into the realms or to explore creativity, you have to allow creativity to enhance your attitude. And if you allow that, then what you'll see is your perspective becomes broadened and you'll begin to tap into places within your mind, your body, and your spirit that you never knew ever existed. And so it's just maintaining that commitment, number one. And, commitment is needed in everything that we do, in our jobs, in our marriages, in our relationships, in our finances. And so that same commitment that is needed to stay committed and dedicated to our financial goals, our health goals is definitely needed, and staying committed to our creativity goals as well. And so just remembering that, creativity is not just restricted to dancers or artists or photographers, but creativity is a gift that all individuals have from every walk of life. And so just honoring what creativity brings and really allowing yourself the opportunity and the permission to explore creativity, and that in itself will enhance and I believe develop a can-do attitude.
Yeah, I think one of the parts of the presentation that I actually took out for time purposes is I think people think about creativity as being like this unbounded act, and so that makes it intimidating. But I actually find that having discipline, like you said, that commitment and the vow is really important to creativity in a process, because it's like, to me, training your vessel, training your mind, training all of it. It's like being an athlete, but it's just an athlete of art,
Absolutely.
And so now I definitely have mantras or themes that I use to keep myself focused. And so do you have any guiding themes that you use yourself or in your work with others?
So my tagline for Pounce Lifestyle is Pounce daily, win more. And so that is my mantra, sort of similar to Nike. And I love what you said, imitation leads to innovation. I love what you said when you mentioned that. And so Nike says, just do it. And so me as the Pounce coach, I encourage individuals and even myself that if I maintain the decision, because it's a choice to embrace what we embrace. It's a choice to receive what we decide to receive. And so I am fully committed and fully have given myself into creativity. So if I make the conscious decision to pounce daily, to aggressively pursue what I believe that I deserve, what I believe that I can capture, then I believe that we're going to turn learning opportunities, because we don't lose. You never lose. You just learn. We're taking those learning opportunities and those teachable moments that come along with creativity, and we're going to see more wins in our lives. And so I think a lot of times that we put a lot of emphasis on the big championships in life. But what winning can be, staying the course. Winning can be, saving $5 a day, to put towards a vacation or to put towards a retirement fund. Winning can be, going to Walmart and buying that blank canvas and setting it up in your home because you know there's an artistic grace on your life. There's an artistic desire in your life, but you've never been tapped into it or you've never been sparked to do it. And so I think if we focus on the small wins, and yes, big wins are important, but we have to understand that we have to embrace our small beginnings as well. And so that is my guiding theme: Pounce daily, win more. As I make the decision to go after it, to pursue it relentlessly, I believe that I'm going to see the wins that I've been looking for, and more than enough as it relates to wins.
Yeah, I have a similar philosophy. I'm like one thing a day. Like if I do that one thing, that adds up to 365 things by the end of the year. And then you can have the win, right?
Yes.
And now, I kind of alluded to this in the talk, but I did go to fashion design school. So I cannot let this panel go by without me asking you, what inspired you to start the Pounce fashion line?
So I literally was back in 2017. I was sitting on the bed and I was watching the Grammys, and I was watching these artists and these performers go up and get their awards, and I was watching the performers. And I've always been big on music and just artistry in itself. And I remember just watching the Grammys, and I was having an internal conversation within myself. And I was really just assessing. You spoke to it earlier about self-reflection. But I was really just like evaluating and assessing, have I really tapped into my full potential? Have I really allowed myself to explore the total capacity of the giftings and the graces that is on my life? And so as I begin to process these things and become very, motivated by watching these performers and watching the entertainers receive their awards, I heard a still small voice. And I call this my impetus moment, so to speak. I heard a still small voice said, "You better pounce." And the word pounce just resonated within my mind, my ears, my soul, my spirit. And I began to download. I jumped out the bed, I scared my wife, and I just began to download ideas and concepts and my wife, she is my greatest inspiration. She is the most creative human being that I've ever met in my life. And so I'm feeding her these ideas and things of that nature. And so from that point on, that started the process of establishing Pounce Clothing Company. But in extension to that, what I've come to realize and come to find out was I didn't want to limit Pounce to just clothing. One of the graces that is on my life is communication. I love to speak. I love to inspire. I love to spark dead battery packs in people's lives. And so I understood that this process and this clothing line was in addition to what the content that Pounce represented. It's that motivation, empowerment to get people to really, really aggressively, not passively, but to aggressively pursue their full potential, their full capacity. And I really want to touch people that really feel like they've been overlooked, really feel like they've been downtrodden and don't necessarily feel like or believe within themselves. And it's just really that really is what motivates me, from the clothing to the speaking, all of the above.
Yeah, speaking of the speaking part of your career, you also have a podcast. So can you tell us a little bit more about that? Like, what is it? Why did you create it? And maybe just a couple of themes that we should take into 2022 that you cover in the podcast.
Sure. So I started the podcast by the name of the Pounce Talks. And basically the premise is just really focusing on the inspiration that is needed to really pursue, pursuing your dreams and tapping into creativity, just referencing you, can be a very scary place. And so I'm really encouraging other people as they listen to the podcast, and this is really a theme that you can take into 2022, faith over fear. Believe in yourself. And when you're faced with fear, choose faith. A lot of times that, when we start to dream, because creativity can take us to some really big dreams. And I believe if the dream doesn't scare you, it's not big enough. If your dream does not scare you, it is not big enough. And so I really focus in on the podcast, really moving you to another level of belief, really moving you to another level of empowerment for you to understand that, big dreams require big thinking, and you don't necessarily have to have all the answers in at that particular moment on how you're going to accomplish what you're seeking or aggressively pursuing. It's just like you said, you're taking that one step and you go from strategy to execution, and then you've captured it, you've possessed it. And so really I focus on those things, and really transformation, the first place of transformation for any individual, I believe, it starts in the mind. And so if you want to see change, if you change how you think, then you'll change what you speak. And ultimately, if you change your confession, then you'll change what you create within your spirit world. And so really just getting people excited about the year that's coming up in 2022. We've been through a lot these last 2.5 years. And so if I had a theme for 2022, for those that are listening to us tonight, it will be, in 2022, it is your time to come alive. Come alive. It's time to come out of the cave. We're out of quarantine. We're out of, masking up. And yes, we're still masked. Some are still masking up, but now it's time to come alive. And it's time to awaken and resurrect that passion that is in you to explore and to possess creativity.
I love that. I'm fired up.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about.
Thank you so much. Okay, so we're going to move on to Raven, but if anybody's got more questions for Montez, put them in the chat. And Raven is always working to become like an amazing storyteller and communicator, and particularly through her work with Palooza Noir. So, okay, now Raven, tell us, as an expert storyteller, what do you look for in a story? Like, what hooks you in? What kinds of stories are most important to you right now?
Well, I think the one thing for me personally, I don't think I really look for the stories. I think the stories find me. I think the people find me. I think what hooks me is just the people, their energy, their heart, the vulnerability. I mean, just look at the panel we have tonight. I literally just want to sit with you guys for an hour more and learn more and more. It's just the energy that people exude. And I think you are going to be attracted to the people you're supposed to be working with. And I think that's what really aligns me with the stories that I end up finding, or the people I end up working with. It's just the pure energy, their heart, their vulnerability. It just happens naturally. And I think what's most important right now for me in stories is just finding people who are just very honest. I think with the pandemic, I say a lot of people have been going through healing processes, and I definitely have myself. I say that you can always find storytelling and healing, healing and storytelling. Love can be found in healing, and purpose can be found in love. So I just feel like all those things combined, you're just going to always interact with people that you're supposed to. And I think that's what's most important right now. It's just like the healing process, being vulnerable, and just letting people know what's going on and being relatable. Unfortunately, I know everyone's saying oh, so relatable, but that's what we need right now. Those are the stories we need to hear. We need to feel connected, because we've literally, even though we're virtual right now, I still feel connected with you guys, but that's the stories I'm looking for, that connection.
That's profound. I love that. Healing in love, love in healing, purpose in love. Is that, I think I got that pretty close, but
close enough. It's all wrapped in there together.
Yeah, I think you're right. Everybody does have a story to tell, and I think what you're pointing out to us is to be open and draw that out from people, and to keep going deeper until you get the trust level for them to be vulnerable and to tell you their story.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so one of the biggest, I'm just gonna say, storytelling projects that you're working on right now is this exhibition of Black and Brown Faces 2022 that's going to be at the Cincinnati Art Museum. So tell us a little bit about the artists that you think are going to be key in the exhibition, and what kind of stories do you think that they're telling through their art?
So I will say with Black and Brown Faces 2022, we are in very early stages. So I can't really give away too much. You're going to have to kind of stay tuned. We definitely are going to be releasing way more information and everything at the top of 2022. But I will say with this year's exhibit, we are giving people their flowers while they are alive. I think over the last few weeks, we can tell life is short. Unfortunately, even with the pandemic, it's short, and people deserve to hear positive things about themselves while they're living. I feel like so many times we nitpick at the negatives of people while they're alive, and it can become very negative and dark. And we don't realize the greatness of people until they're gone. You don't realize what you got till it's gone. But we have to realize what we have here while we're alive. You get one life, get your flowers now. So we are definitely going to be giving flowers this year. So that's what I can say about the exhibit for 2022, but stay tuned. We're expanding everything. So I'll say that it's going to be bigger than ever.
That is so exciting, even just conceptually, because we were talking before we started the panel tonight, and I was saying that before my career in trend forecasting, I actually worked in arts marketing, and I worked at a gallery as well. And I loved it because it was all living artists. And I was like, I am so glad I do not work in an institution. And but Kathy, you may give me a hand slap, that is just focused on dead white guys. Because I think you're right. It is so important to hear the voices now. I want to have art nowness, not art history all the time, And so this is so exciting and expansive. So I can't wait for you to unveil what you've got coming. And then is there anything else you want to add? You worked on the Juneteenth celebration last year, and that was apparently a really huge success. And so is there something that you're going to repeat in 2022, expand it? Can you reveal anything about that?
Yeah, so we're bringing back Black and Brown Faces. We are also bringing back Juneteenth Block Party for 2022. Woo! So once again, we are expanding Plus Noir in general, just because we're so thankful and blessed that the community and the city and our supporters, partners, they have all been so helpful and supportive and loving and encouraging. So we're able to just continue to grow and create more spaces, opportunities, and just fun, loving events. And we just continue to get to grow that. So you'll definitely be seeing more of us. You'll definitely be seeing Juneteenth Block Party coming back and Black and Brown Faces. And there might be some more things that might be coming, but I can't say just yet.
Well, Raven, you have to tell us your Twitter handle or your Instagram. I'm sure, I know Kim and Amy are on Instagram, but will you tell us where we can find out more?
Yeah, you can follow us at Plus Noir,
Great.
Plus Noir, or you can follow me, Raven Avar __. We post a lot, or you can follow Rico Grant. He is the CEO and one of the co-founders of Plus Noir, and we are posting all the time. We definitely want to make sure that the community is in the full know, and we want y'all to show up. We know you're going to show up, but we definitely want you to show up.
All right. Well, while Kathy's kind of circling up any questions from the chat, Raven, is there one last burning desire that you want to tell us about Black arts in general, or other things we have to look forward to?
I would say with Black arts in general, it's here. It's not going nowhere. We're not going anywhere. And I think it's time. And I think we are getting to that point where we have no choice but to embrace, encourage, and provide resources for Black arts. I really do think that Cincinnati and the Midwest, my boss, Rico, always says this, but we are definitely on a rise of the Black Renaissance here in Cincinnati and in the Midwest. And we're not stopping, nobody's stopping. And there's so many more people here, and ArtsWave is doing an amazing job with providing those opportunities for people to understand what's going on in the Black arts community as well with Flow. I know they're bringing, I know his last name is Lewis. Norm Lewis is coming and he's doing a Christmas concert. And I just found out that he was the first African-American male to be the Phantom in Phantom of the Opera. And someone as a theater kid, I was like, I didn't even know. So I'm really happy that ArtsWave is providing these, and they have this amazing thing called the ArtsWave Guide. And it's just a list of multiple events that are in Black arts. And it's so important for people in the community to see that, especially for someone who wants to create spaces for people who look like me. I'm so excited that they're doing this so that people who may not know what they want to do, but they have that creative urge, kind of how Montez was saying, they have it in them. Everybody has it. They just don't know where to put it. And I think these are amazing opportunities for people that are younger, older, my age, whatever, who have that urge to be in the arts and creativity, and they can see people who look like them, see African Americans, Black people on stage or performing and be like, I can do that. So I think that's amazing. And I'm looking forward to all the events.
Awesome. Your energy is just contagious.
Thank you.
All right, Kathy, any questions?
Yeah, you guys have been amazing. I've been taking notes throughout and also, of course, chatting as well. So I've got some things for each of you. Kim, you talk about borrowed ideas. So give us some examples of that, like how have you borrowed something and then that has helped you to go that next step?
Yeah. Okay, I have a really concrete example. We created a show maybe 4 years ago that was with a group of folks who identified as immigrants or refugees in Cincinnati. And I was really thinking on how the audience could experience the show that wasn't just, we often at Pounce don't do like proscenium and audience separated shows. We often do something a little bit where the lines are blurred between audience and performer. Not in the scary way, like improv comedy. We don't make you become a performer. But I was just kind of thinking, and a theme of food and how food is such an easy way for culture to be shared and often kind of an entry point for people to have understanding. Somebody at Pam Kravitz, who's a great visual artist around town, had mentioned kind of creating a 3-sided table like Judy Chicago famously did. So that's like a very concrete, I took Judy Chicago's idea of this 3-sided table, and then we used that to kind of be a thrust stage that we, the audience sat around, we cooked food, so everyone ate during the show. And so that was an idea that really, I started from that seed of Judy Chicago's work and then expanded into something that, was heavily borrowed, because I think when you talk about a 3-sided table with most people in the art world, that's what comes to mind.
Very cool. And Valerie, the inspiration equation, how has that changed as you have developed it? Like you've gone into these different areas. How has the equation changed for you as your life has changed? Because that's what we'll all be thinking about in 2022. We remember that. And then we're like, how are we doing that with where I am right now?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a deep believer in, I already mentioned this, like creative discipline. And I have a lot of practices because as a futurist, my head is in the clouds a lot. And so I have to go in various cycles of making sure I'm grounded. I journal every day. And so I find that my focus is often around creating like stability in my day-to-day life so that I feel tethered enough to fly and be free. And so sometimes that changes. Sometimes it means that I need to be doing more body work or more yoga or more strength training. But I really believe it is a multidimensional act to be creative, and that you need all of these things like physical health, mental health, emotional health. And because I'm journaling all the time, I'm reflecting on what I think I need. And so I try to adjust accordingly. And I think in 2022, I think Kim and Amy have really inspired me to get back in my body more. And so I hope that you guys have programming that I can go check out. And this was already on my mind, so this was really inspirational. but I just check in with myself a lot and evolve accordingly. And sitting in a chair for 2 years because we have not gone back to the office in my company, it is more important than ever to like get up and get moving. So I think for 2022, that's going to be one of my goals.
Great. Sarah on our chat says, give people flowers while they're alive. That's beautiful. And I love what Raven's telling us to think about 2022 in the sort of realm of flowers and growth. Any other things you can tell us on that? I mean, it's got me going.
I just think it's very important for us to uplift each other. I think it's just been so much negativity the past 2 years. I feel like it's been a mix of positive and negative, but I think going into 2022, we definitely need to uplift each other and love on each other and just give each other flowers while we're alive. Life is short. Like we just saw Virgil Abloh, like that was unexpected. It's just, you just never know what someone is dealing with as well internally behind closed doors with their loved ones. You have to give each other grace and just give each other give flowers. You just never know. Just telling someone you like their hair today, you have no idea how much it's going to change their day. Like it can be the smallest of just a petal from a flower. Like just give each other flowers.
That's great. And Montez, the Pounce Talks is so, it's so interesting what you're doing to inspire others. I have this sneaky suspicion that you're getting a lot out of that, just personally to what that means to your life. Can you talk about what this motivational, episodes, if you will, what that means to you?
Absolutely. And if I can get a little personal, I just, one of my themes is generational wealth. And, my father died with gifts that he could not tap into because of fear, because of his past, because of his history. But prior to him leaving this earth, I remember a very intimate conversation we had together where he shared with me his desire to entertain, be on radio, write books, all those sort of things. And so that really planted a seed in me to, inspire others, but to also inspire myself to continue on and to really be intentional about, like Raven just said, I consider myself a farmer, and so I want to become very intentional to plant seeds of inspiration in the hearts of men, women, and children, whoever, I have the pleasure of crossing paths with, and really, really want to plant seeds of innovation and infatuation and creativity in individuals. And as if I'm able to not only plant, but to water that seed, I get excited about the harvest that will eventually come forth in that individual. And so I tell people, I want to die empty. I want to die empty. I want to die knowing that I gave it my all and that I've established and impacted the minds of individuals that, like I said, I may not change the world, but I definitely will influence the minds that will. And so that's what keeps me going, and it keeps me motivated internally as well, because I don't want to die full. I want to give it all away and give it to as many people that are open to receive it, and really see what transpires and comes after those seeds, germinate into a harvest.
Wow, you guys, what an evening. What a set of panelists. I'm inspired by all of you in different ways. And yet there is a real connection. You're describing different things, but there's so many parallels. And creativity is a huge part of that. And it's obviously a part of your DNA in all these different ways. Anyway, my thanks to Valerie, to Kim and Amy, to Montez, to Raven. It's a wonderful way to end the year, but also to begin the next year. We're going to have those goals, and we're going to be boring, and we're going to give flowers, and we're going to make sure we're moving, right? So that, and we're feeling it. Thank you. Thank you for sharing all that over the last little over an hour. Thank you everyone out there for joining us in the series, and for supporting the arts. Live arts are back. We couldn't be happier. And we are so thankful for all of you in the role that you've played in that. Have a good evening.